Diversity is a big topic these days, and rightfully so. Diversity just means a state of having many different forms, types, or ideas. A group is considered diverse if there are people of different races, cultures, or ideologies within it. This lesson plan is called Join the Flock, because although we will be making birds, none of them will look alike. Let's begin by considering the parts of a bird. Even though birds are incredibly diverse, they all have the same basic parts, which are, in terms of our sculpture, 2 legs, 2 wings, a tail, a head, and a beak. Each part of a bird serves a very important function. The beaks of each type are shaped to help them eat the foods that they need and like the most. For instance, a hummingbird's beak is long and narrow to drink the nectar from deep within a flower. Shorter, cone-shaped beaks are needed for cracking seeds. Birds' legs are also adapted to their feeding requirements. For instance, flamingos have very long legs for wading in water while looking for food. When looking at a bird, notice its feet and legs. They're used for so many things: walking, hopping, perching on a limb, swimming, catching and holding food, and even for turning their eggs during incubation, like my chickens do. Are you ready to make a whimsical mixed media sculpture while using remnants that might already be stored in your nest? Since we're familiar with the parts of a bird and how they function, the next step is to gather an assortment of leftover art materials to create your own feathered classroom flock. Here I've gathered leftover papers, fabrics, yarn. I even ripped up an old painting that I didn't really want around anymore. I have strips of an old t-shirt, leftover burlap from another project. Your list could be endless. I'm also going to be sure that scissors and glue are at hand. So I've decided today that I'd like to sculpt a bird that's similar to a cardinal. And after looking closely at the cardinal's beak, I'm going to grab some paper mache mix and roll a ball about the size of a small marble. This reminds me of playing jacks. That little jack ball, it's about that size. I'm going to roll this in my palms just to get a sphere. And then I'm slightly pressing down on one side of the sphere on my tabletop. And this is just going to give me a little cone shape at the end here for my cardinal. So I've rolled this side, and I'm going to just kind of incise a line to differentiate the top and the bottom of the beak. Okay. And then toward the back of the sphere here, I'm just going to kind of squeeze it, just flatten a little area and poke a hole right through it. And this is going to serve as a really nice little attaching place later. So I'm going to sit this aside to dry and go on to the legs. Now you could do that beak the day before and just be sure that it's going to be totally bone dry. So I'm going to form the legs and feet using soft sculpture wire or chenille stems for younger students. And I have found, if using the stems, that twisting 2 of them together make a little bit sturdier leg. So I've twisted these together, and at about the 4-inch point, which would be 1/3 of the way in, I'm going to go down to there and start just making the toes. And I'm just going to bend little loops. If you're using a sturdier wire, you could maybe need some needle tools to help you bend, but these stems are easy enough, even double, that you can just do it with your hands. So I've got my front 3, and I'm just going to twist and make a little back toe. And this helps with stability, so your sculpture will stand much more easily if you've got that back toe. And then with the leftover, I'm just going to twist back up. So obviously you're going to make 2 feet and set those aside. And now I'm going to look at the shape of the cardinal's body. Most birds are sort of a oval shape with kind of a pointed end where the tail goes. So I'm just going to start, this is just old newsprint. I'm just going to start wadding up some newsprint. You could use fabric, you could use any kind of paper. So I'm thinking about the size and shape of this body. This might be a little bit small, but I'm going to start keeping it together with these little plastic bands. And these are great. They're economical. There are a lot of them in the package. Now, if you wanted, you could put little craft fluffs in for some added padding wherever you would need it. This is just a little scrap of muslin. I'm going to add this. Now you can use a little, this is the quick dry tacky glue, which I love. You could put a little bit of that on. I also have some strips of red burlap, and since I'm doing a cardinal, I thought those would be nice to use on this bird. You can tie them, wrap, leave all these little frilly ends if you'd like. So once you get your body sort of partially built up, you're going to want to attach the beak. So I have a body here that I started on, and I have a beak. So this is my cardinal's beak, and I've already painted it. You can paint them, use markers on them or whatever, but do that before you attach. And that hole in the back, I've just put a strip of raffia through there. You could use wire, string, yarn, whatever. So I'm going to position the head or the beak where I think I need it. And you're just going to have to kind of figure out where you can tie this. Sometimes I need to cross these pieces, just tie them down underneath. Now you can add more to stabilize that if you'd like. Add a little bit around where it's attached, kind of build up the head a little bit. And I'm going to do a little glue. So back to the feet. I've got my 2 feet made, and I'm going to connect the feet just with another pipe cleaner, with another chenille stem, and kind of make a U shape that is going to fit over the bird's body. And then that just fits down over your bird's body. So the more you continue, the sturdier the feet will be, really attached. So once we're to this point and we've got our beak and our feet on, it's time to add wings and tail. So they can really be made out of almost anything. Leftover papers, leftover canvas is nice and stiff. These are some fabric and paper pieces that I stiffened with rice paste. I do want to say something about making sure your bird stands. Now, some balancing may be necessary to get it to stand perfectly. So because, for example, this bird's head is so far away from its body, it's a little bit heavy, I needed to add some weight to the tail to get it to balance. So deep in here, I just tied a little bead. And this is a glass bead. You could use wooden beads, you could make paper clay beads, and just tie them into the tail or hide them in there or glue them, and then you've got a nicely balanced bird. You can make your birds fly by adding loops to their backs. I hope you'll enjoy creating your own diverse classroom flock with the leftover materials that might already be in your nest. For a complete materials list for this lesson plan and plenty of other ideas, please visit dickblick.com.